Hello and thanks for tuning into the Irish Angle in association with William Hill. This week we're delighted to be running a competition courtesy of our sponsors William Hill, giving you a chance to win tickets to the William Hill Boyne Hurdle Day on Sunday the 8th of February. We have 15 pairs of tickets to give away. To enter, simply tell us in the comments what you think was the most impressive performance at the Dublin Racing Festival over the last 2 days. Terms and conditions apply. Competition is open to Ireland, Irish and UK residents aged 18 and over. To enter, simply leave a comment below before 11 p.m. on Tuesday the 3rd of February. Winners will be chosen at random and contacted in the comment sections below. No purchase is necessary. This promotion isn't sponsored, endorsed or administered by YouTube. Tickets are non-transferable and have no cash or alternative. Now with all the T's and C's out of the way, leave your comments below and let's get into the show. Paddy, Johnny, we had a massive weekend of action, kind of taking a chance to catch our breath maybe between the Gold Cup and now, but it's been brilliant from start to finish, Johnny. I suppose we all kind of has to go to Leopardstown for getting it off the ground, I suppose, first of all, after a really hard week of weather for them.
Yeah, like Emma, Leopardstown has never called off really, and I'd say Leopardstown since 2 winters ago have had ground that they basically had to water to keep kind of safe for national hunt horses. But we live in a climate crisis, and the week we've had was, I haven't experienced anything like it in Dublin, and I was amazed that Leopardstown was so close to going ahead on Saturday with the rain that we've had. But like the fact that it ran on a bank holiday weekend, it was the most perfect solution. Like we run the Sunday, we run the Monday, and the ground held up very well. Like, we spoke about Goran holding up well on the Thyestes Day, but Leopardstown's ground, like I suppose it's like on a water table that wasn't that high from a long many months ago. It held up quite well, and we had so much to talk about. Like it was just fantastic. I love the idea of a festival now. I think it's the way to go with racing. People love festivals. Very hard to get a ticket for either day. Obviously today now was quieter with the Monday rescheduled, but it was brilliant racing.
Yeah, I suppose they were maybe a little bit unlucky in a way, Paddy. Like the Saturday was a sellout crowd, plenty of people coming over from the UK. Understandably, a lot of those probably couldn't hang around for today's card, but still, fair play to them for getting it going. They found a new racing line for Sunday's hurdle as well, pushed it right out by the chase course. But kind of like Johnny said, there's not many tracks in the country would take the punishment Leopardstown took and still got racing on over the weekend.
Yeah, still got great racing. It wasn't like we were taking a chance with it being unraceable and horses were falling out of the television screen. It was still competitive, and the ground is I suppose that you could call it sloppy if nothing else. And once the ground is sloppy, it's safe, because you can get through it. Paddy Graff and Peter Rowe, all the ground staff there, them boys would have been working 24/7, and they deserve huge credit. And as well as, like Johnny said, a festival, yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? It feels like when I was in Australia, the Melbourne Cup becomes, nearly a month of a carnival. They call it the same thing as a festival, but it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And, every year the DRF, it's not disappointing. It's getting better and better. And look, I'm sure a lot of the people from England were disappointed, but there was so much on in Dublin that it actually, they would have got out and got their few points. They were able to go to the Dogs in Shelburne and have a few bets. And, there was plenty on. And I'm sure they all had a great time. Now, look, they would have loved to have seen that Gold Cup today. And today's card is obviously, littered with grade ones. So, look, it was superb it got done and got racing, because, if we didn't have it, we'd be very, very stuck coming for Cheltenham.
Yeah, it was a savage lineup for the Gold Cup. Willie Mullins even noted before the race it might even have been a better race than the Cheltenham Gold Cup in a few weeks' time. But we'll go through it, lads, starting from Sunday's card. We'll kind of go maybe race to race. And Johnny, I'll go to you. First race, Paddy and Maureen Mullins handicap hurdle. Amir, you put up as one to follow a few weeks ago after she won in Cork. Cousin Kate, she was a very, very impressive winner for Dennis Hogan. And up-and-coming young claiming jockey Michael Keneally. He's had a savage season so far, and this was a big win for them.
Absolutely savage season so far, and no background in racing, kind of a little bit unheralded, I suppose, to a lot of racing fans when he came into the game. And the whole Cousin Kate story, this is why racing is just like it means so much more than a sport. Like Cousin Kate was bought by Hugh Mulrine, who tragically passed away last year in his mid-20s, and he was such a promising guy in the racing sphere, and I would have known Hugh very well, and he bought this horse for 50 grand out of Augusta Kate for his dad Liam, And the funny thing was, like, she wasn't really showing anything when she was sent to Dennis Hogan, and just improvement. And the way that she travelled in the race, at your local track, Emma, the last year, she was very good in Mallow, but it was almost like a nothing race compared to this. It was proper competitive. And the fact that this is a 100 grand race now, that mares are targeted for it. And I suppose one of the beauties of the race is how much this would mean to Willie Mullins to win this race. Like, he finds it very, very hard to win this because it's kind of more spread out across like the training ranks. And, I was talking to Hugh's brother, Michael, before the race, just wishing them the best, and he said, you mentioned Cheltenham, and maybe we have something for Cheltenham now, and they have, like, the way she's improving, traveling in her race, such a well-bred mare. I got great kick out of this, and I think Dennis Hogan has done a really, really good job with her. Just keeps improving, and the way she's traveling in her races now, she's probably well up to going up in class at Cheltenham.
Yeah, she's a mare massively on the up, very well bought by you, Mulwine, and hopefully she continues to give the Mulwine family plenty of good days out in years to come. But Paddy, we'll move on. A big upset in the next race, the Ladbrokes Novice Chase, first grade 1 of the weekend. Final man sent off, I think 3 to 10 favourites in this one. He never really went. His jumping was disappointing. It was interesting. You actually weren't massively taken by his chasing performance in Limerick before that. You thought maybe his jumping wasn't as good as others did. I suppose you were proven right here. He wasn't. I suppose what we were all building him up to be on the day.
Yeah, I probably thought he ran up to par, probably as Limerick, without winning the race. Listen, the first day in Navan, he was foot perfect, absolutely foot perfect. But it turns out the form of that was really poor, So any horse that's well superior of its competition, look, coming out of Navan, we knew he was a very good jumper, but once they turned the screw a little bit, that good jumping became, he's probably too good of a jumper to be a top class chaser. He really needs to get out of the air a lot more, couple of fences down the back, Paul needed big ones. And it was a little bit like Romeo Coolio today, when a horse is at its top, for you to get a big jump out of a horse has to quicken. When you see the jockey's knees bending, that's the jockey getting the horse to quicken that last 2 strides so it can get a big jump. But when Paul was doing it on Final Demand, there was nothing left to quicken into the jump, so he had to sort himself out. And he looked big, and he looked awkward, and he looked slow, to be honest. That's what he looks like. He looks like a big, slow horse. Johnny often references walk in the park, what did he do off the bridle? And listen, unfortunately, he's not going to be, the next superstar coming out of Ireland, because even if he does up his game and up his jumping, he's getting beat too far to be, that to be the problem.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. I suppose to give a word to the winner there, Johnny, first grade 1 winner of a massive weekend for Mark Walsh and JP McManus. Kay Doughty, a horse definitely on the up. Interesting that he's now joint favourite for the Brown Advisory. Final man remains 3 to 1 with William Hill, and Kay Doughty around that price as well. Look, he's definitely a horse on the up. His jumping was good, and he stayed all the way to the line, I suppose, and did it well on the day.
It's just hard to know what he achieved, Emma. Like, you're watching races where, like, you had all these kind of Willie Mullins hot pots and Marine Nationale as another hot pot, who were basically beaten very, very early. Lost him out for 1, but Final Demand, for me, like, if you backed him at the short odds, you were in trouble a long way out. So Kay Doughty to beat Western Fold by 4 3/4 lengths. Western Fold didn't handle the ground as much as he's rated 157. I don't know what he actually achieved on the day. Kay Doughty was good. I just, the form of the race itself, like, in hindsight, he probably was the horse back in the race. I thought, like, Final Demand was an absolute walk in the park, high horse, the way that he ran this race. Like, the one time he came off the bridle at Cheltenham, there wasn't a lot there, and you were expecting him to improve over fences. And the one worry I had about this race was, like, it was all hype about his jumping and everything he'd achieved. But as Paddy said, it wasn't, the strongest race the way it worked out at Navan. The Limerick race, the nothing race, it completely fell apart. Very, very disappointing. And, 3 to 1 at Cheltenham, like, on the back of this is a terrible price. I think he'll run well at Cheltenham, but won't win. And what Kay Doughty achieved, I'm just not so sure.
Yeah, that Brown Advisory, that 3 mile novice chase division looks wide open at the moment. I'm kind of waiting for something big to emerge, I suppose, after the disappointment of Final Demand. But we move on to the big novice hurdle of the day, the Tattersalls Ireland Novice Hurdle Grade 1. Over the 2 miles, talk to talk. Paddy, look, he was given a patient ride by JJ. He got there just on the line. There was plenty of people maybe watching it live who thought Paddy Flood had maybe hung on there, but Talk to Talk called the winner fairly quickly. Look, he handled conditions. He jumped a lot better, I thought, this day as well, and he looks a good one for Joseph.
Oh, he looks a really, really good horse, Emma. I was probably in the camp of everyone else. I thought he was beat, and I was kind of sitting on the chair at home, kind of sideways, trying to will him to get there on the line, because he's a horse I really like. That I would say that's probably the best performance of the weekend. What's that, John?
One of the best finishes you've ridden, actually.
Yeah, stylish on the couch. But no, I take this performance and upgrade it a hell of a lot, because they went out with the plan to teach him a bit, because you're always a little bit worried when a horse does what he did at the last day, because he jumped really well throughout. And to be fair to Sam Young, he had him asleep the last day, and the horse kind of balked when he got a bit of light, and Jack kind of had said after us that, I don't know if he'd have got by me, but we all know he would have bolted by him. But I'm not 100% sure he's bred to love soft to heavy ground. He went in the middle of them. He never seen a hurdle for probably a mile and a half. He came out at the second last. He went wide off the bend. He was 3 lengths down at the last, winged it, landed running, and like I said, I thought he was beat, but if you'd have gone another furlong there, he'd have been gone 5, 6, 7 lengths. And I think if he was on the speed, he'd have won easy. He's a real live contender going to Cheltenham. I think he's a massive hope for the Irish.
Yeah, he's 9-2 second favourite now for the Supreme, behind Old Park Star, who's 7-4, El Kairos 11-2. Yeah, Johnny, look, JJ rode him, I suppose, with ultimate confidence. He just produced him when he had to, and as Paddy said, he showed a real good turn of foot. And were you impressed by Talk to Talk?
Yeah, like JJ, I don't think he'll be happier with the rides going forward as he was this. And like, it's just looking at the IrishRacing.com comments and running. I don't remember a horse who didn't benefit from a faller with comments and running weakened in his comments and running, weakened and went third last and still got up. And I was like, I kind of half fancied the race, but he was 9-4, and I was worried about the ground. So I was like, is he probably a bit too short? And he was weak on the day, 3-1. This horse at Cheltenham is going to be a serious contender. Like El Kairos, we'll talk about, taking on again another slightly hyped horse in Britain. This horse is like, I'd be very, very surprised if he's not banged there. He's so much ability, and Joseph O'Brien's ability to get him there on the day, to train there for Cheltenham, ease off him now and get him there for Cheltenham on better ground. And as you said, Emma, like, I think the jumping was something that Ruby Walsh brought up a lot about before the race. He didn't think he jumped well enough, and he jumped a lot better here. And as much as, like, he only won by a short head, it was a great performance. And should mention King Roscoe Gray. He was beaten a half a length for a horse of very little experience. And I think with leader Dahlia there, this is a brilliant Supreme to talk about in all these Cheltenham preview nights. We've so many options in the race, but at the moment, for me, Talk to Talk's the one to beat in the race.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I'd say he's fair value for that win as well, and it's probably a race that'll produce plenty of good horses in the future. So Paddy Flood, King Oscar Ray, like you mentioned, a good 1, 2, 3. I'd say we'll mention El Kairos as well. Just give a quick mention to him, kind of going away for the DRF for a second. He obviously won in Thurles during the week. Paddy, kind of a bit of a scare for backers at the last hurdle again. Kind of a similar to, maybe slightly similar to what he did at Leopardstown at Christmas. Jack kind of blamed himself for it. What did you make of that little error from him?
I heard Jack blaming himself, but you'll tend to do that as a rider, when you're going to win a race and you're a little bit hesitant and something happens. I'm not too sure 9 out of 10 horses would make that mistake if Jack rode them this very same way. So I think there is a quirk in him, to be honest. We might have seen that in his bumpers as well, that we were probably not giving David Maxwell credit enough for keeping him straight and stuff like that. So he could have a little quirk. I wasn't that impressed with him. What's that, John?
The ground at Thurles, like, it was like, this is a fast.
Yeah,
like, just saying how fast he is, and he's running on almost one race, like really testing ground.
Yeah, look, Thurles, when it gets heavy, it's not like your Leopardstown there, or it's more like your Goran. It gets gluey, it gets sticky. It's really hard work. But look, they crawled and he sprinted, and his times home was very good. I don't think we learned any more than we knew that he's a very good horse. I don't think we learned that he's a standout Supreme horse. If you offered me the two of them, I'd ride Talk to Talk just alone on his performance in the DRF. And just funny to say that Talk to Talk is for sale, Johnny. So if you want to let a few quid there you have in your arse pocket, if you want to let that go, you could buy worse ones.
Yeah, it was an interesting interview actually on RTE today, saying that he was for sale. I didn't think they'd be in a rush to try and sell him now, but you'd imagine there'd be a few kind of wealthy owners lining up for him. But Johnny El Kairos, what did you make of him? I wasn't actually on track, but I was talking to a few people who were, and they said he looked really, really fit on the day, which I thought was interesting. Look, he showed a good turn of foot, I'd say, but I'd definitely be sticking with Talk to Talk over him at this stage.
Yeah, I would be worried about that jump at the last, because like to have the memory of what happened at Leopardstown, like it was, geez, if you back the short odds there, you'd a serious scare. So like the race was absolutely won. So it wasn't like he was under pressure. I do love the way he goes through his races though. Like in Jack Kennedy, like who was the most, absolutely anathema to be hyping a horse. He loves how this horse travels in a race, and I'd just be worried, like you're going to the Supreme, and like Gordon took what he obviously understood to be the easier option of going to win a maiden hurdle. It didn't really work out that well, because he was probably fives on shot, and he made a bad mistake at the last. Like, and I do wonder will that be in his head? But this is why I love racing now. So Jack Kennedy will be like probably whispering, sweet lovings in his ear in the next couple of months, saying next 6 weeks it's fine, we'll get over this. He'll work him on the gallops and he'll get a buzz off him, and he does have serious ability, this horse, like serious ability. But how Jack will ride him at Cheltenham, if he's come to the last, is he going to ask him to go for it? Like, is he going to ask him just to basically like pop?
I think he jumped quite well with a lead, Johnny. I'd say the tactics will be arrive shooting at something for the last, and I'd say talk to talks will be the same. That there won't be two horses that you'll see upsides in front or anything like that. So again, it's another nice twist on it. There'll be horses come from the back, and you could see All Park Star bouncing out there, and he's that type that could roll away in front. And listen, it's a great race now.
Yeah, it looks a cracker, and like interesting, kind of waiting for that big Willie Mullins Supreme horse. And it's getting kind of late now. Like he's got nothing in the top few in the betting, so it's a real open and competitive looking Supreme. And look, maybe if we got a few followers in the comments there, we could all chip in and try and buy Talk to Talk and have a little Irish Angular syndicate for the Cheltenham Festival, maybe. But
get a Patreon going, will we?
yeah. Actually, if we got a few thousand people there with a few hundred quid, we might be able to persuade them to part ways with them. But as we move on to next grade one, staying with JP McManus and Mark Walsh again, Majbur filled the cheek pieces, and Paddy, he was a totally different horse today in the Dublin Chase. He absolutely ran them ragged. His jumping was completely different. Look, it just looked an inspired decision, I suppose, the cheek pieces, and Mark Walsh was really, really happy afterwards.
It's brilliant. This is making me happy that every race we're mentioning, we're saying Mark Walsh. I'd say he is just loving life at the minute. Even I'd say he's not thinking about losing the job at the end of the day. I'd say he's just sitting in that weigh room 10 foot tall, because he was rode off. He was completely rode off, and in by all accounts, the news I've got, I haven't spoke to Mark, was that the Cobden announcement was just completely out of blue to him. He hadn't had any indication that it was coming, or he hadn't been informed any way about it. But look, just a mark of the man, and how he's able to just bounce back and stick his chest out. And you can see in riders, some Galway is a little bit like that. If someone rides a winner on the first day in Galway, you can nearly back them for the week. It's a great buzz. And I think festivals kind of tend to lend to that, because you get one off the board, you have all the pressure off, and everything flows great. But you can just see Mark Walsh from the minute the starters dropping the flag, you can even see it. Now you might notice this, but I do. But sometimes you'll see jockeys sitting into the saddle, rushing a horse into the bridle, and everything is a little bit rushed and panicky. You watch Mark now, on every race he rides, he's just bang up in the irons, horses up into the bridle. Majbur is the very same. He threw caution to the wall, a pair of cheek pieces on him. He said, how fast do you want to go? Because I'm going to go with you. And then all of a sudden, it's man and beast at one. And he's doing it on every horse. It was like watching.
sorry, it was interesting before after the race. Willie's mentioned that it was actually the first time that Mark kind of got his own way on Majbur. I think they were giving Mark instructions all along. And Mark said, look, I'm going to ride him this way today. He hasn't been working all along. And he was proven 100% right, different tactics. And he was just unbelievable.
That's Mark. You'd never hear that because he wouldn't come out and say it. And whereas others would blame a lot around him for what's going wrong, Mark will just quietly go about his business until he got it right, and a pair of cheek pieces, that was Willie's doing, don't even think JP knew about that. So listen, that's the horse when we talked at the start of the year that we thought we'd see, and we all kind of said, well, I think Johnny had said, if that lad got rocking and rolling and took you to a fence, there's nothing in the country, in Ireland or England, can live with him. Now, will I back him in Cheltenham? No, because he could go out and do the very same as he did in Cork or the last day in Leopardstown. But if he goes out in Cheltenham and he does what he did in Dublin, there's nothing in Ireland or England get close to him. Won't even get to his tail. He's that much ability, but yeah, he's a weapon, but he's a nutcase too, isn't he? Like, you'd swear he was the best leopard in Ireland watching him the other day. He shortened, he winged fences, and for his last 2 runs, he looked like a fridge.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put a reading on him. Really, he kind of make a bit of a fool of you, wouldn't he? But he's 13-8 favourite now for the champion chase. Johnny, Barry Connell, he was quite in the bit, I suppose, on Sunday after plenty of talk about Marine Nationale. He mentioned before the race that the ground wouldn't be a problem, but after the race, the ground was the problem. So look, he was never going, I suppose, Marine Nationale. He hated it out there, I'd say. But how do you see the champion chase pitching now after that one?
I genuinely, Emma, I could not believe the price Marine Nationale was going into this race. Like how he was sent off favourite on that ground. Like this was ground that for another, he's a horse that works very, very, he's a fast horse. I couldn't believe he was favourite. And I was like, how is Majbur, like, how is he not stronger in the betting? And that almost put me off. Is like, this horse, like, he wasn't beaten that far behind him at Christmas. Totally different ground. He won the Triumph on heavy ground. He's by a kind of a Japanese sire who's come over here and we wouldn't know much about, but he showed that he can handle. He was very, very good in the Triumph. And the key with him is obviously going left-handed. Like he goes there. He was absolutely spectacular. Like the racing TV analysis that Angus did about his jumping and the ground that he made at each fence is exactly why, like, we need more of this stuff from racing. But I genuinely could not believe that Marine Nationale was so strong in the betting, because the morning of the race he was second favourite, absolutely justifiable. Solness was weak in the betting because the ground wasn't going to suit him. Found a 50 come in for money, which kind of added up because he'd handled the ground. But like, how was Marine Nationale? He never went a yard. Like, it was after literally 100 yards of this race, you're like, you're in big trouble here if you back this horse. And Majbur's jumping performance was spectacular. I do think at Cheltenham it'll be a lot closer between them on, maybe good to soft ground. I think Marine Nationale will be way, way better than that. But I do feel the Barry Connell camp here, they took a risk running him in this race because he was never, ever going to love this ground. And if you're going to leave Cheltenham behind you to win a race like this, they have done that, because he was flat out for 2 miles. He showed a bit of guts to get up for second, but he was beaten 20 lengths pretty much. He was demolished on bad ground. And there were some horses running, Galloping to Champ, we'll talk about it. You're like, okay, what's your main plan this season? Like, this race was called off. This race meeting was called off a day before this. It was really, really testing ground. And I couldn't believe that he was favourite. And we saw a performance in Majbur that befitted a horse as a 4-year-old who was already, they were talking, even as a 4-year-old, he's going straight over fences next year. He's a beautiful, big horse. He's going to take to it. But for me, this was the most baffling market of the whole DRF.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit surprising to see him actually running, to be fair, because Barry Connell was kind of maybe saying earlier in the week, if it was going to be heavy, he probably wouldn't go, but seemed to change his mind. Like, it was probably as bad as we'd see Leopardstown being, and he just hated it. Yeah, look, I'd find it hard to see him bouncing back, but at the same time, like, Majbur probably, like, even though he jumped brilliantly at the weekend, he probably still has the ability to absolutely clatter out at Cheltenham, which could change the complexion of a race completely in a race like a champion chase. But look, it was a massive performance and a great ride by Mark Walsh. But we'll move on. We handicap next, though, just because Leopardstown handicap chase, and Sean Bowen came over and got one on the board. Paddy, we saw him at his best, I suppose, for Paul Byrne at Mullins. I think he had a bit of a roundabout trip. He went back over to Sandown after Leopardstown was cancelled and came back again, and he was repaid with a winner, thank God.
He was. And I see the lads, they're all pretty clever. They all had flights booked, you know, for back and forth just in case. I think Paul Townend and Jack Kennedy were the same. Listen, Sean Bowen's an absolute cracking rider. You know, you could pluck him and put him into any race or any country, and he doesn't stand out as if he's not. He shouldn't be there because he's as strong as an ox. You know, he's always been a very good rider, but he's gone to a different level now. He's up there with the very, very best. You know, he kind of reminds me of Dickie Johnson in the finish. You know, he just gets down and gets gritty, and like I'd say, as an owner, you just love to have him on your horse because he will not leave a length behind him anywhere on a racetrack. You know, and listen, that's what these top class riders are paid to do. But day in, day out, whether he's third or fourth or first, he'll ride the horse the same way, and he gives everything a chance. And he's as strong as an ox. I'd say he's as fit as a fiddle. You know, I'd say he could be a little boxer or something. You know, he's just hardy and strong, and I love watching him ride. To be honest with you, he's got a great balance because he rides very short. Now, if you watch him closely, he rides really, really short, and it's really hard to do to keep your balance and rhythm when you ride that short. You know, horses going long and short, but yeah, he's a cracking lad and a cracking rider, and doesn't matter where he'll go, he's hungry for winners, and he's got Mackay's record in sight. And like, people would have laughed at you 5 years ago, but there's a chance this guy could do it in the next 3-4. He's only a young man, you know.
Yeah, did he win? I think he might have won the champion condition on his first year riding as a professional as well. So he kind of always had that maybe McCoy era about him. But great to see him coming over. I think like even the crowd, like seeing Sean Bowen, like, you know, best jockey in the UK, coming over and riding winners, it kind of adds a little bit to the festival as well. But the big race was next, the 320 Irish Champion hurdle. Johnny, Lassie Mouth came into this 4-6 favourite. Brighter Days Ahead came out on top for Gordon Elliott. Look, I suppose on the day Lassie Mouth maybe didn't really look like herself throughout the race. Paul Townend kind of said that afterwards as well, but all kind of has to go to Brighter Days Ahead. It was a huge performance for her, and she's actually gone into favour for the champion hurdle now on the back of that.
Yeah, again, a race. I tipped El Fabiolo. I was very disappointed in him. You know, and Amsterdam was held up. Ruby Walsh was saying before the race that he thinks he's better on deep ground. I actually don't think he is. I think he just wants a strong pace to get into a rhythm. Typical kind of fast authorised horse who just needs a gallop, and he's sort of flattened out as well. Poneros didn't run too badly. A strange market again, Emma. Like Brighter Days Ahead was 13-8 in the morning, went off 11-4. And it's hard as a puncher. You're like, Jesus, how can I back this mare when she's so weak? There was talk about her at Christmas, you know, coming back to her best, but they all said afterwards she'd come on for the run. And like, for me, Lassie Mouth, I've said this several times, she's not really, really top class. Like, Paul Townend chose State Man last year because in his mind, State Man was absolutely better than Lassie Mouth. But she never went a yard. Again, she was one of the, like, she was a horse who was just beaten a long, long way out. And Brighter Days Ahead, how she turns up at Cheltenham now, I wouldn't be sure about her winner champion hurdle. She was desperately disappointing at Cheltenham last year on the back of like coming in there in the form for her life. But yeah, like, it was a good performance. It was just a bit of a strange race, and I'm not mad on the camera angles that are shown at Leopardstown with the revolving camera. I kind of find it hard to track how a horse is actually moving and distances and all of that. But funnily enough, I might be mad, but I wouldn't be giving up on Amsterdam off a strong pace in champion hurdle. But great job by you know, Team Elliott. He said when we did an interview with him recently that he hadn't lost any faith in her, and to beat Lassie Mouth by 3 1/4 lengths, even if she wasn't at her best, like, fair play to her. But again, I'm not sure why she was so weak in the betting on the day.
Yeah, I suppose it was a good decision to switch her back over hurdles. I'm looking back on it now. I think he said Michael Leary actually was the main call in that decision after missing kind of the first half of the season. She couldn't get out over fences, so they decided to send her back hurdling. Look, she's 2-1 in favour of the champion hurdle now, Paddy. New Line 5-2, Constitutional Hill 7-2, and Lassie Mouth 4-1. Look, Brighter Days Ahead, on the day she was brilliant, but I think with her Cheltenham record, I'd find it hard enough to back her going into a champion hurdle. I wouldn't be totally shocked to see maybe Lassie Mouth even reversing that form again if they met at Cheltenham again. But what did you make of that and the kind of champion hurdle picture moving forward from it?
I got the same sort of feel as I did when Lassie Mount was beat by Constitution Hill, you know, and they kind of said she didn't turn up, and I think she did. I think she just, once she gets out of her comfort zone, she doesn't look.
She has limitations.
Yeah, she's a mare, you know. She's not a big barley mare. She's tall and she's slender and she looks like a mare, you know. So once she's out of her comfort zone, she you know, she just lacks that gear. She really is a 2.5 mile racehorse. She could probably get 3 mile the way she races too, you know. So listen, all along we were kind of saying, why wouldn't you run her in a champion? And like Johnny said there, Paul always stuck with Stateman, even when he got beat that time. He was always sticking with him. So I suppose on homework, he probably knows she's not the best 2-miler out there. Look, I'd give Brighter Days Ahead a lot more credit than I actually have been over a long time, to be honest. I thought she was good value for that 3.5 lengths. She was probably, idling away there up the track. I know her Cheltenham form, and that isn't great, but I mean, she topped out last year at Leopardstown. She went so fast around there. She emptied herself, and I don't think they've done that this time around. I think she's actually a much fresher sort of mare this time around as well. So just by looking at the market,
over like one bit of exercise over a few minutes, is that how much that can cost you? Like 6 weeks later, one bit of exercise.
Yeah, but you look at the runners that go for the world track records and stuff like that. If they gas themselves early, they'll always build up to it just to peak once. I'm not sure how many times a year a horse can peak, when you have mare as well, sometimes it's harder to get them back to peak. Whereas a gelding, by law, by physics, they're stronger and hardier, they're bigger muscles. But a mare to throw up that performance in Leopardstown before at Cheltenham, she was never going to get better at Cheltenham. She was always going to either maintain it or go backwards, and she didn't maintain it. And that's fair enough. You can accept that. But I think she's a massive player now. I know she's favourite for the champion, but I just think by default, what's behind her? So Constitution Hill's probably not going to run by the sounds of it, or what the hell is going on with him, because
he was fixing the stalls well, in fairness.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah. I've a Cavapoo here at home. Will probably come out quicker than him.
But look, 4 minutes 20. She won the race yesterday. 3 minutes 45 last year when she won at Leopardstown.
Yeah, last year was
different. Ground is different, but like she ran from the start to the finish last year as fast as she could. There was no breather, there was no nothing. So, and she, for a mare to actually do that for you, she's a super mare, because a lot of them won't. But no, I think the prep this year is very different for it, and the fact that the opposition is not great. It's her, it's Golden Ace, and it's the new line, and it could be the two mares, getting the weights off the new line. They're probably the standout lookers for me, because the new line, look at Final Demand and look at what he beat last year. They're ordinary horses now, and he didn't do his followers any favour in Cheltenham the last day. He won a nothing race now. But to be fair to him, it wasn't a race that the gun was to his head at any stage to be put into it. He was only put into it after the last, and it looked like a bit of a school round for him. But you'd still would have liked him coming down and winning a lot easier than he did. But look, Brighter Days Ahead is bang there, and I think Gordon would love to win a champion.
Yeah, he's made no secret of it, I suppose, in the past, and like you said, it's wide open. Like if Constitution Hill, I know probably maybe looks a bit unlikely at the moment, the fact he's going for a flat maiden in Suddle, but like if he got there in any kind of form and he jumped around, you'd imagine it's kind of, it might be his race for the taking at this stage. I'm just looking at the field at the moment. Pity not to have Stateman this year. It could have been maybe his year as well, but we'll move on as we've plenty to get through. And we had a handicap next. We saw Jack Kennedy getting the better of Sean Bowen in a tight finish there. But we'll move on to the bumper. There was plenty of drama here, Johnny. Moon Veron was, I suppose, look, it was great to see Martin Hassett getting a winner on the big stage, and he was confident coming into the race. He told Finney McGuire he thought he'd have a winner, and he did in the end. But I suppose plenty of the headlines went to ride on Royal Hillsborough. Stephen Connor unfortunately made the error of mistaking the 50-yard line for the winning post and appeared to stop riding a little bit early, which kind of changed the complexion of the race late on. Look, there was plenty of people maybe mentioning afterwards, like, what is the point in that 50-yard marker? Like, is it needed at all? Look, it's tough going for him. It's probably happened a few times throughout the years, but it wasn't easy, I suppose, for punters, owners, or for the jockey himself.
No, like I mean, like punters who back this horse or whatever, like, I've sympathy for them, but this is on the jockey. Like, he's the fellow who had to wake up today, like, and in the overall scheme of life and like the tragedies in one's life, like Stephen will get over this, and like it's not the end of the world. But like it happened, and the one thing I will say, like Martin Hassett's mare, she travelled so well that the way she behaved in the race, as a good mate of mine said to me last night, who actually backed the winner, he said she actually did look the best horse in the race. She kind of started to idle in front, and I'm delighted for Martin Hassett. Stephen Connor will get over this. It's not the end of the world. If I own this horse, I'd be absolutely delighted in life. You know, she's going to be like, we're going to have a good horse here. She's a 6-year-old mare, but she's going to do good things going forward. And you know, I know he got the ban, and you have to do something, but like he doesn't need a ban to feel bad about this. We've seen it before at Leopardstown, but you know, let's get on with it, like, and just move on in life, because you know life is too short to be worrying about this. He made a mistake, but it was a genuine mistake. He wasn't showboating or anything like that. And both of these mares are going to be good going forward.
Yeah, I thought, like you said, Martin's maybe pulled up a bit in front, and he kind of mentioned that in the interview himself afterwards. They kind of warned Finny not to get there too early because she does it at home as well. Paddy, what did you make of this? Do they need to kind of maybe get rid of that marker pole? That's what plenty of people were calling for afterwards. Does it have any purpose at this stage?
I'm not sure it has any purpose at all. I'm like, is it for the race caller? Maybe, I don't know, because like as a jockey, I can never remember looking up and going, where's the 50? You know, that sort of way. You always know the furlong pole, and you know your tracks. But listen, as I said, we were professional riders, and this chap is just an amateur. He'll be gutted. Now, if I owned the horse, I'd be gutted too. It's $100,000 bumper. They don't come around very often, and you know, as much as he deserves an arm around the shoulder. He definitely does, you know, and I hope it doesn't, you know, I hope he doesn't feel too bad about it. It gets done everywhere. It gets done all the time, but at the same time, he deserves his 2-week ban, because you know, it's a silly mistake to make. And listen, amateurs, it's a tough sport. Amateurs in Ireland aren't really classed as amateurs in the betting public, because they are very good riders, the amateurs, the ranks here. And you know, I'd have to have sympathy with anyone who did back them, and have sympathy with the owner and the trainer. You know, you're missing out on the DRF bumper winner. But yeah, that 50 marker pole is what's the point of it, really? You know, because I was trying to think back, did I ever even look up at the 50? And I can't remember doing it. You'll always know, you know, even if you go to a track, say if you went to England or France or somewhere you're riding, you're always looking for the last furlong, you know, and something to catch your eye, that you know where the line is. Or you know, if you're going around Punchestown at the festival, you know where the Stone Mall is, to kind of start quickening a little bit. But yeah, I don't see the need for it. I think it should be in the bin, really.
Yeah, plenty of people kind of saying the same thing. And look, boat mares and jockeys will have plenty to look forward to in the future. But we'll move on, lads, to today's racing. The first race of the day, we saw a really impressive winner, Nathaniel Lacey, novice hurdle over the 2 mile 6. Dr. Steinberg, 7-4 favourite for Willie Mullins here. Johnny, he seemed to relish conditions. He was keen nearly the whole way around, but he just booted clear of him. He looks a really exciting one going forward for Willie.
Yeah, myself and Tommy Lyons on the Irish Edge. Like, I thought this horse was the absolute lay of the meeting at around, but even money. I thought he was way too short, but he still won. He was 7-4. He was backed on the day. I kind of don't know what to make of this race. Like, Love Me Tender, for me, I thought there was a big kind of question mark over the ground and the trip with him. In the end, I tipped up Yesh Hill in the race, or ran no sort of race whatsoever. Stantis Spar was well beaten. On the ground, as bad as it was, he's a funny horse, because he just like Danny Mullen said after Navan, that he keeps surprising us, and he is one of these horses that just keeps surprising. He won a grade 1 here by 8 lengths, and I think Kazansky definitely ran his race. You know, he backed up the Limerick form when he beat a horse like in county final who ran no sort of race subsequently. I'm not sure, and Yesh Hill, who ran no sort of race. I'm not sure how strong that form is. I don't know about Dr. Steinberg. Like, I was kind of half knocking him going into the race, but for a horse who basically was running like so early in the season, he wouldn't be the conventional Willie Mullins horse at all, going to Cheltenham, the track that he's had. But it was very hard to knock him. He was free in the race early, and I thought he's definitely going to be vulnerable here, and he's ended up bolting up. But I don't think this was a strong race, to be honest.
Yeah, he never really dropped a bit, which I thought was impressive, like on that ground, to be able to keep going. Interesting, in the interview afterwards, Willie actually thought he was a summer horse at the start of the year, and wasn't sure he'd handle this ground at all, but he seemed to relish it. Paddy, look, he's 5-2 favourite for the Albert Bartlett. I think he's around 4-1 for the Turners as well. You'd imagine Albert Bartlett would be the way this fella's going. Did he impress you?
He did, and I gave him up a few weeks ago as the horse to follow in Navan after that meeting. I tell you what impressed me. I mean, he wasn't just lying on the bridle; he was fighting for his head. If you watch it back, you can rarely will you see a horse's head shake when Paul Townend ride them. Even when the horses are keen, Ballyburn, the likes of them, Paul can keep a lovely even grip on them, and you'll see him lifting his body weight to just lean out of them and pull against them. But he had to, check him and check him and check him. And the horse had probably two or three times in the race that he could have settled. And I'd say, I don't know, was it a plan of Gordon Elliott's? But Gordon Elliott's jockeys had a plan anyways. And any other day it would have worked. They were trying to get that horse to pull too hard and do too much. And he did. And he quickened and he winged the last and he went away again. I thought that was a really good performance. And like you, I heard Willie saying they thought he was a good ground horse earlier in the year. So maybe he's one of these horses that just jumps out that, that doesn't show a whole pile too much at home. I'm not too sure. I'd still think he's a proper stayer. And I think in Cheltenham, they hacked around there today. They didn't go quick at all. And from the flag fall, I think JJ pushed up on Paul's inner. That's what got him keen. Then Danny Gilligan spotted that and his horse was relaxed. So he went up outside him. And you could nearly see Paul having a look around to see where everybody was. And the boys just stayed on his boot when they had him running free. I'd give the race and the winner a massive upgrade. I think he's a horse with a big future.
Yeah, I'd agree with you completely. And I haven't seen him in person now, but on the TV, he didn't look like a big, huge, robust kind of horse. But he was really, really impressive. And if he went that Alberta direction, I'd be a big fan of. He's now going towards Cheltenham. But we'll move on now to the juvenile hurdle, next grade 1 on the day. Narcisco has really solidified his triumph hurdle credentials here, Johnny. He was really impressive. He's got maybe a little bit of Marsborough about him, this horse. Looks like a big kind of chasing type. And he was really impressive the whole way through the race.
Yeah, a mate of mine asked me to back him for the Triumph a couple of weeks ago, and I sort of procrastinated. And in the end, I took the bet myself at 7-2, kind of thinking, sure, it'll work out well. I'm very, very worried now, Emma. I'm very worried. You a juvenile who jumps like this, and like when Selma DeVere came up at the last, I was like, okay, I have a chance here. What I love about it is in his kind of visuals as well, like what she did against Maj 2, she actually kind of half struggled to beat Maj 2, but he was very strong after last. And for a juvenile, this horse jumps very, very well by a proper national hunt stallion, Dr. Dino. I can't pick a hole in him. I thought he was like, if you were to give him a mark out of 10, it was closer to 10 than 9. Couldn't pick a hole in what he produced. Maybe some of the British horses at Cheltenham, I think they have some good juveniles this year. We'll give him a fight for it at Cheltenham, but God, what price is going to go off now? Paddy is not going to go off 7-2, I think.
He's clear favourite at the moment anyway, Paddy. 6-4 favourite. Like Johnny said, could be an awful lot shorter on the day. I think there was plenty to take from the performance of the second horse on debut for Willie Salma de Vary, but Narcisco has totally stole the show.
Oh, he looks a beast, doesn't he? He looks a beast. I'd say your money is gone, Johnny, with this lad. Look, I thought it was a good race. I thought whatever won this, I thought Maj 2 would get a little bit closer to him. This lad's nicer than Marsborough. He'd be a nicer ride than Marsborough. Who knows what sort of talent he has? We know Marsborough is a freak. When he gets it right, he's unbeatable. But this fella he looks like a 6-year-old going around against them juveniles. He's scope. He's that big, long neck way of going. He can get tight to a hurdle. I got tight to one down the back with Mark. And literally, you see them juveniles, sometimes they stress about giving a hurdle a little rap, and they can kind of either jump onto the bit or get disappointed. These two big lugs of ears, he just had them stuck up there looking around as if he was on the gallops at home having a great time. And he went down to the last. It didn't look it on TV, but he stood kind of halfway out from the wings at the last, that fella, and cleared it, landed, run. I don't think England have acted like this fella. I think this lad's top grade.
Yeah, I can obviously the dynamics of it is, so like I can double the stake on him at 6-4 to get out for a loss. And I have been thinking about this very deeply today. Like, what's the best option to not lose as much money as possible? I just, he's, as Paddy says, like, he does not jump like a 3 or 4-year-old hurdler at all. Like,
Yeah, I'd say you buried yourself in a bit of a hole here with this one, Johnny. But I'd be trying to minimise the losses as much as possible, because I'd be surprised now if we saw a better juvenile hurdler than him this year. He looks like a fair one, and it'd be interesting to see what they do with him next year as well. Will they do that same kind of Magsborough route and send him straight over fence? He does look like a chaser, and that's kind of what Willie had been saying.
I don't think he's that big, raw, too big. He looks like he'll jump hard. That could be champion hurdle horse. You know, he's that type. If you look at him, he's so naturally, and he grabs ground. You know, he doesn't hang left or right. If you watch him gallop and he's just grabbing ground, he's still learning how to gallop. I think he's very, very good.
Exciting one to keep an eye on going forward. Anyway, lads, we've got a couple more races to talk about. We saw good handicap winner there for Philip Fenton and Niall Moore. Fair play to him for getting down to the weight. I'd say it was well at his minimum. Was it 9 stone 8 or something? I'd say he was doing a fair bit of running to get down to that. But that was a good winner for him.
Can I just say about Niall Moore, Emma? I just said I'd definitely mention it. Since we started jockey coaching, Niall is on my books, and I'd say if I told Niall to camp outside my house, he'd camp outside my house. He's literally getting, down with me on the simulator, schooling. He'd be in Fenton's all morning, and he'll try and get to me for like 2:00 for an hour of jumping or simulator work, and then go back in the afternoon and do a bit of work somewhere else. So there's every young fella that, deserved a winner on TV and a good prize money. It's Niall, and he's a cracking rider. I hope he gets more rides. He's one of the fittest young men I've come across in a long, long time, and he loves the game. So, well done to him.
Yeah, Philip Fenton seems to have plenty of mass in him as well, and he was saying he wasn't going to give up this ride to anyone else. I think he was saying he rides the horse every day. So getting down to 9 stone 9 definitely wasn't easy for him, but he did it, and it paid off for him as well. In fairness, always good for a young jockey like that to get a winner on the big stage as well. So hopefully, it'll be kind of a springboard to more success for Niall Moore. But we'll move on to the next grade 1 of the day, the Irish Arkle, lads. There's only 3 runners in this, but it was a cracker, Johnny. It only kind of takes 2 horses to make a race, really, and Romeo Coolio and Cargase did just that. It was kind of you couldn't take your eyes away from it the whole way throughout the race. It looked like Cargase had it in the end, but Romeo Coolio, how brave he was to come back again. Brilliant race from start to finish.
Yeah, I think you're being too nice for him here. Like, I thought it was a flat performance from him on Niall and Philip. I think like Philip's a trainer who had like obviously the John Gwib story, and then he had his own challenges, and I think he's the type of fella that you'd wish him well in a way. Like, I think Philip's a good fella, and I'm a big fan of Niall Moore as a rider. This race, like I was saying all day, Romeo Coolio is a 1-4 shot. He'd never run on this ground before, but Gordon didn't seem to think it was an issue. I don't think he handled the ground that well. I thought it was a flat performance from him. He came back. You're saying like he was brave to come back from that mistake he made, and he was well off of coming off the second last. But like, I think if Paul Towning got this race back after the last, I think she would have gotten back up and basically beat him. He stopped. He really flattened out in front. Maybe Lulamba's going to destroy him at Cheltenham, but I do feel at Cheltenham you'll see a different Romeo Coolio if Gordon can get him there on the day. And this is another worry. He had a hard race today, and I was disappointed in Mema, to be honest. I wouldn't have thought this was anywhere near his ceiling of his ability. And for me, and I didn't listen to the interviews after the race, I don't think he was at home on this ground. And just looking at him, his jumping was good most of the race, but like, he was flat out a long way out here, and he just got home rather fortunately if you were on the short odds.
I'm not sure I agree with that now, to be honest. I thought he travelled and jumped better than he did the last day over 2 miles at Leopardstown behind Irish Panther. I thought like he made a few mistakes.
After last.
Sorry?
He was legless after the last. Like, he was out on his feet.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, he was kind of left alone in front as well, but the ground was testing. I thought he travelled fairly well into the race. I thought she looked home and hosed, and he just came back at her. Paddy, I'm not sure what you thought about it now.
Funny race. Toddy had to put it to bed after jumping the last, but Paul's mare looked like, did she stand on herself or pull her own shoe off at the back of the last? Because when I was watching it live, I thought, geez, that mare's after going wrong, just for 2 or 3 strides. Then, I think Paul himself thought, and rightly thought, I'll mind her now up to the line, because she's after having a hard race. I'm not going to, Paul Townend isn't a stick jockey, if they're good enough, they're good enough. But I don't think she went any quicker. I just think Romeo Julio went slower, to be honest with you. But like Johnny said, I don't think he is in love with heavy ground either. I think what Gordon was probably saying is the ground is heavy. It'll slow them down around them so he can travel much easier. I thought he travelled a lot better early, but like Final Demand, 3/4 of the way down the back, Jack went for two kind of big ones, and he couldn't quicken into a fence and get it. Whereas the mare, she's a sharp, she's quick, she is very quick now on her day, and she's nimble over a fence. So you could see it when Jack was really looking for it. The scope wasn't there. I thought he done wonders to win, to be honest, and I thought he done wonders the last day to win, because I'd say he could be more like a Gold Cup horse in time, and he's completely at the wrong trip. But again, would you go out of novice company to take on open horses? I don't think you can yet. You could ruin your horse for future reference. So I think he'll be rode very differently in Cheltenham. Like they basically just drop the hands on the horse's necks today, see who was the quickest in the race wins. And tactically he'll never do that again, I'd say, ever in his life. Whereas I'd say in the Arkle they'll jump him out smart, but Jack will let him have that breather at some stage. Whereas today he wasn't able to get a breather because he was fearful of the other horse in the race was faster than him. So Catch 22, he's a fair horse to win without a breather going flat out from start to finish. The other side of it is, I think going to Cheltenham on better ground, he's learned a lot now about jumping. We know he's very good, whereas Violent Demand is now looking like he's too clean at his jumps and spends too long in the air, whereas Romeo Julio was good, because I thought when he did put down the 2 times on Jack, I thought that's him done. He's finished. Most horses give up at that stage, but he showed a good heart. I'm not sure I'll be having a big bet on him in an Arkle, but I think all this experience he's getting over the winter here in Ireland will stand to him come March time. I think he will be a better horse on nicer ground. Is he an out-and-out 2-miler? No, I'd say he's probably a Gold Cup horse in the making, and whatever he's doing now is a massive bonus.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like if that 2.5 mile novice was here, like he probably wouldn't even be running over 2 miles. And it would be no shock, I suppose, if he goes when he goes to the Arkle. Might be the last time we see him over 2 miles again. They're 9-2 the pair of them for the Arkle. Alamba and Kopek de Board still ahead of them in the betting. I think he's learning a lot at 2 miles. Like I agree with you, Paddy. I don't think he's actually a 2-miler, but they kind of discussed it maybe a little bit on RT after the race. Would they go to the Ryanair or not? Probably sounded a bit. The Gordon's probably sounded a bit against it, to be honest. Like you said, it's going to be hard for a novice to step into open company at this stage of their career, but look, it'll be interesting to see either way. Johnny Kopek de Boards obviously missed this one. It'll be probably tough enough for him now going towards Cheltenham on the back of just that one placing start. He's 5-2 second favourite for the Arkle still, but it was a pity not to see him out here.
Very much so, yeah. It's maybe they all have to go and beat Lulamba, but it's just there's a lot of mystery around Kopek de Boards. Like there was definitely weakness in the market going into Cheltenham, or going into Leopardstown rather, and it just doesn't seem like he's had a great prep. Like we haven't had that much information on him, but the Kopek de Boards camp looking at it, like I think he was out to 5-1 after he wasn't declared, and as you say, he's now way shorter. So it'll be down to his trainer to get him there on the day. And to be fair, he slammed Romeo Julio last year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Look, it's not going to be easy for him going straight there, but it is Willie Mullins training him at the end of the day, so it would be no shock at all if he was to rock up and win an Arkle as well. But we'll move on, lads. The big race of the day, the Irish Gold Cup, just wrapped up before we started recording this show. And Paddy, look, you're the biggest Fact to File fan, so I leave you go through this one. It was a huge performance by him. I wasn't expecting it, definitely, after his performance the time before in Kempton, but he bounced back to a massive effect, and another big winner for JP McManus and Mark Walsh.
Yeah, my loyalty was being questioned with him now all year, Emma. I've been his biggest fan for probably 2 years now. I love the horse. I think he's just such a classy animal. But I was starting to doubt the 3 miles. I was starting to think, is it just a stretch too far? Again, I just thought it was horse and rider in sync. I think the trust was there today. I think kind of Mark said it afterwards that he probably got to ride him like he wanted to ride him all along. You know, he's been kind of anchoring him to settle and not using his jumping at all, really. You know, and that's probably his forte, is that if you're brave enough to stick him in a spot there that's third or fourth, like if a horse is sitting third or fourth, it still doesn't mean you're on the speed. If you're able to make a length at every fence, you're saving so much ground, you know, and you're saving so much energy. And that's what he did today. You know, he got down to the fourth last there on the bridle and landed in front. And you could see Mark just kind of taking a little pull out of him, and the horse just 2 ears pricked, winged it, you know, got in tight to the second last. And he's a horse that he doesn't lose ground when he goes tight to a fence. He's so neat and nimble. I thought he won it kind of easy today, to be honest with you. You know, he pricked the old ears at the line, had a good look at the photographers. Thought he jumped exceptional. I'd say March time with a little cut in the ground is his ideal ground. You know, I think that the trip over to England, it just didn't work for him. Ground was too quick. In the King George, I tell you what, I'll give the second horse a lot of credit. He's a beast. He pulled. He never dropped the bridle, not once, on heavy ground around Leopardstown. I think you're a big fan of him, Emma, and I'm a big fan of Factifile. I think they're going to clash again and again and again. And, you know, out of 10 times, one could go win it 5 times and the other could win it the other 5, you know, because if Factifile settles and jumps like that, he's a very hard horse to beat. But your opinion now on the second horse, you know, you're a big fan of his. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I think at the start of the year, Factify was your Gold Cup horse and Gaelic Warrior was mine. But look, he pulled way too hard. It was impressive to see him finish the way he did, considering how hard he pulled. He never dropped the bit the whole way around. I didn't actually see the interview with Willie afterwards now, but you were saying they were talking about Ryanair, which I was a bit surprised about, to be honest. I thought, look, if you get him to settle in the Gold Cup, he has to have a huge chance. I'm just looking at the updated betting here now from William Hill. Factify 7-2 favourite for the Gold Cup. Gaelic Wire 7-1. I think he still has to look a bit of a bet at those odds. It'd be interesting to see maybe riding arrangements going towards the Gold Cup now. Would Paul Townend maybe get off Galopin Des Champs, who was, look, he ran his race, maybe age is starting to get to him a small bit. I don't know, Johnny, though, like me and Paddy were kind of saying, like even at the start of the race, Galopin Des Champs, he had plenty of sweat in him. The vibes from the Mullins camp maybe weren't as strong as you would have liked them to be if you were a Galopin Des Champs backer coming into the race. Willie was interviewed beforehand and Ruby was talking on RTE, and they just didn't seem as confident as they would have in years gone by about his chances. But look, you can't take away from the winner. Like he was swinging, turning into the straight. He was absolutely brilliant.
This Gold Cup is just epic, Emma, now. Everything about it. Who's Harry Cobden going to ride in the race? Or Mark Walsh, the guy who was basically, if not sacked from his job, considered surplus to requirements so that they could bring in Harry Cobden. And ever since then, he's just shown what a good rider he is. And exactly what Paddy said, he rode him basically as the horse that he wanted to ride in the race, as he wanted to ride him in the race. And if that were a mistake by the McManus camp, not having Factifile in the Gold Cup, as much as 25 grand might be pony to me what it is to JP McManus, what were they thinking? And maybe we didn't call them out at the time. I was like, Paddy, I tipped Factifile in the race as my selection in the race, but I was a bit worried about his stamina on this ground. I didn't like it. I didn't like Galopin Des Champs at all, because I just think at that level, as a staying chaser, it's desperately hard to keep going and keep going and keep going back to the well. And today he just kind of showed that he's just not the horse he was. I didn't think he was the horse he was at Christmas, and it didn't surprise me that he's beaten today. But I was kind of like, on that ground, will Factifile say the trip? I didn't really like Gaelic Warrior going left-handed over that distance, so he's run an amazing race. But like, where do we talk about another way you're thinking? Like, he's had the worst imaginable prep to go back to win the Gold Cup again after winning it so impressively last year. But a lot of this for me was about the confidence of Mark Walsh. It was almost like a guy like who was on death row and he'd exhausted all hopes. He was just like, I'm just going to live my life now. I'm going to have my last meal several times. Every horse I ride now, I'm going to ride him without. And he rode every horse at this festival as if he hadn't a care in the world. And I hopefully I might talk to him at the race on Wednesday. Like, what were these 2 days like for him? like we haven't. It was it's like JP McManus in terms of the media. Who knows what's going on? There's very, very little information. We don't really know what happened here. And what Paddy said, it didn't sound like Mark Walsh was like totally in the loop about what was going to happen here. And he rode this race like it was a piece of work. And Fact to File for me was exceptional today. Everything was perfect about what he did. And the stamina doubts are gone. Why wasn't he left in the Gold Cup? It literally makes no sense whatsoever. For me, he's now the horse to beat in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, that is the kind of strangest thing of all. Like Willie Mullins, who normally keeps all options open until 2 days before the race when declarations are made, like he never gives us any hint of where the horse might be going, but didn't put Fact to File in the Gold Cup. Paddy, look, is it the JP McManus team? Maybe they have a thing about supplemented horses for the Gold Cup now after last year, or what was the story there?
As rich as JP is, I don't think he would like throwing away 25k every year, I don't know. I heard Willie's interview after it, and did it sound like JP's camp scratched him? I don't know. Willie kind of had said that he was in it, but he was taken out then late. So, and it whatever way he worded it, it didn't sound like it was his camp that took him out, because Willie's been saying this horse could be Gold Cup horse for the last 3 years. He thought he was that caliber from even as a bumper horse. He was saying it. So I don't know, but like I'm just delighted Mark Walsh is just kicking it. I'd say I've rode I think I rode 4 winners one day in Kilbeggan, and no graded race or anything, but you're just floating. Nothing you can do is wrong. Everything just, it's like riding a horse in slow motion, and you can see Mark there, he's just free and loose, and nothing, there's no tense in him or tightness in him. And look, he won't have the ammo once Cobden is there, but I'd love to see him, still going for another year or two and maybe beating 1 or 2 of them in a Gold Cup or something. If he can get a horse like that, it'd be great. But he'll take this weekend now over anything. And I'd say, as I said last week, he's got great people around him. He's a great family. I don't think I'd be able to hold my tongue as good as him now beside Katie Walsh
Really,
there all weekend.
Really?
Look, I've been known to be a bit quiet, Johnny, but I'd say I would have let fly.
Yeah, he's going to keep Harry Cobden under pressure anyway until he gets the job. Like Mark, I think did he write, I don't know, was it 37 or so winners for JP Group Grade 1 winners, but he's extended that a fair bit this weekend, and like it's going to take a fair rider.
Well, there'll be pressure on Cobden now, all the pressure's off Mark. So if he goes out and, starts getting beat on these Grade 1 horses, well, who's not to say that Mark won't be shipped back in,
Yeah, he'll probably be waiting in the wings anyway in case anything goes wrong. But you see how much satisfaction he got though out of Fact to File and Majbur. Kind of like he was saying, the amount of belief he had in those horses, and just for them to show it kind of on the big day. Kind of when Mark probably needed a big winner himself as well. Look, it was brilliant to see, and kind of one of the best stories of the weekend. But lads, we've been going on for plenty long enough now. We'll wrap it up here, and maybe instead of a horse to follow this week, we might kick off maybe the comments for the competition. Tell me your most impressive performance at the Dublin Racing Festival. So this is answer in the comments to win tickets to the Boyne Hurdle. Paddy, what was the most impressive performance for you?
Mark Walsh is back.
Johnny? I'll actually give that as well. Just like you could give like obviously the obvious horses, but like I met Mark Walsh's parents. I remember reading them in the Dunraven the evening before the Munster National. Mark Walsh has been this quiet rider for the McManus operation. What he did in terms of like Mark Enright, when Mark Enright was almost on death's door, like what Mark did as a person. Never forget that. Like he's a quiet fella. He rides for an operation that like everything is kept stum and all of that. But like this was about Mark Walsh this weekend. For me, he's been. I'm a massive fan of him for years and years and years. I think he's a phenomenal rider. And this was. I'm going to go with Paddy on this. He's a top lad, and I'm delighted for him.
Hard to go away from me on that one, lads. We'll go all around. Mark Walsh was the most impressive performance of the weekend, lads. Let us know in the comments below if you agree with us or who you thought was most impressive over the weekend. Johnny, Paddy, thanks for everything. Hope everyone enjoyed the show, and tune in again next week for another round of the Irish Angle.